everybody, this is Dan, and welcome back to Community Spotlight. Today on the show, we have Bridget. Say hello.
Hi.
How are you doing? How's the quarantine life treating you?
It is so much fun
How
sitting
so?
at home with my dog and my laptop.
Aw. Well, are you still, like, how have things, like, are you still able to work, or has it been more kind of tell us a little bit about how you're doing.
I'm really lucky. I'm able to work from home. I was actually working from home before the quarantine. So, yep,
I
get
see, I see.
to stare at spreadsheets from the comfort of my bed. It's
Well, you know,
everyone's dream.
definitely got to count your blessings when you can. So, we have, as you know, during our interviews, we try to talk a little bit about our cosplay community. And, as someone that is very involved in the community, I'd love to hear some of your thoughts. So, before we start on that, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I have been cosplaying for 6 years, 7 years, and grew up obsessed with Sailor Moon and cartoons, anime, Disney, all that fun stuff. Finally jumped in and found that I really love the community. It's the first place that's given me like a sense of family in my life. So it's just everything about it helps me feel fulfilled as a person.
I see. Um, did you start your cosplaying here in this local community, or did you, are you from the Bay Area, or did you come from...
I am. I grew up in Concord, and I started going to cons when I lived in Sacramento. And I've since moved back to Concord, and I'm back in the East Bay area. But the Sacramento con community has always kind of been my favorite.
I
That's where
see.
I started.
Um, what was your first con experience in Sacramento? Like, was it Sac Anime or?
Yeah, it was.
Okay. Um, if you compare your first Sac Anime, or if you like kind of reminisce on your first Sac Anime, like what can you describe that experience for me?
Um, it was really exciting. It was the first time that I was in a place where there were so many people that had the same interests as me, and it was really exciting to see all of the costume. Like obviously I had this idea of cosplay, but I didn't have like a full like understanding of it. I didn't think about like things that you see every day, like the body paint, the huge builds, like the mecha suits, all that's I didn't even fathom it. I'm thinking like people are there in Halloween costumes and wigs from Party City, and it was not that. And I don't think I was really prepared for how exciting it was, and so it really blew me away. And looking back now, that was just like the tip of the iceberg. Like now that I've been to Crunchyroll and some of the bigger cons, where people like really put the work in.
Oh wow,
So it was really exciting.
that's pretty cool. So one of the things I wanted to talk to you about today was this group that you're a part of, the Unboxed Angels. So, my first question is, well, first of all, tell us a little bit about the Unboxed Angels and what motivated for you to be a part of such a group.
um, I was in the Geek Fashion Show, and my fiance Kelsey, who you recently interviewed, he and I were very involved. I became the operations manager, and I started seeing a lot of things that um, could have been done but weren't. A lot of stuff that I saw that was lacking, and a lot of things that I just wasn't happy about. So we parted ways with them, and Kelsey had this idea of trying to be more of a community outreach group. And we had made so many friends, so many, like, you met so many wonderful people within the community, that we just started reaching out and saying, like, hey, is this something that you'd be interested in? And initially, it just started as a group of people that wanted to give back more, just volunteer, whether it's, kids' parties, like kids' events, in cosplay, volunteering our time there, or benefits in cosplay, volunteering there, stuff like that. And it sort of turned into more of like a community support and, for lack of a better term, protection network.
Oh, wow. I mean, I imagine that in order to be a part of a group like that, you have to embody certain qualities. Because, there are some people that really, really value cosplay community as kind of a safe space versus, I hate to say this, there are some people that kind of use um, cosplay as a medium to kind of generate clout, self importance, and whatnot. So I guess if someone wanted to be a member, how does one qualify? What is your idea of an ideal member?
Um, I mean, honestly, at this point, we started as a group of people that had mutual interest, and we kind of grew into this little family. um, it's not about who qualifies. It's really about who wants to put the work in. Like I said, we've gone to several volunteer events. We've had volunteer events where we've had people go, and there's no, like, they weren't prepared to have volunteers. Like, they didn't have kids. They were going to have like a booth and stuff for photos with kids. There were no kids there, and so it's like, I mean, are we even giving back at this point? So sometimes there are things that deter us. It feels like we're not living up to like our plan. But you know, our goal is really to just support the community, and that's grown to include some of the unfortunately negative aspects of the community, and speaking out against it, and trying to inform people and warn them so that they can be prepared.
I see. I mean, that's definitely, a good place to start, being able to set a good example as well as, speaking for those that, for whatever reason, just are not able to speak for themselves. So, it's definitely important to have members of the community that embody that idea. You stress the importance of safe spaces, and, I feel like all communities in general need to include a safe space, but especially the cosplay community being one where people are trying to express themselves in a very creative fashion. You have to be very vulnerable to do that. Um, are there any examples of instances where you find an event failed to provide this? Like, just like, not necessarily like a conflict of interest, but more like their focus is more on other aspects of the con to the point where safety ends up taking a backseat.
Um, yes, we we have encountered one specific event where, and we've done this for several different events. Say, hey, we have, a couple of members that are going to be at this specific con. If you, for any reason, need a friend, need somebody to talk to, you're sad, you're lonely, you're upset about something, after you've gone and spoken with security and tried to resolve the issue, if you need a friend, like, send us a message to our page and we'll come hang out with you. Like, we won't bite. We're nice people. We're realistically, at our core, we're just a group of friends that care. And one specific event really did not like that. They felt that we were trying to replace their security measures. And despite the fact that we had recommended that people always speak with security first, and so they ended up um, kind of trying to pick a fight with us. And it's like, guys, we're not trying to step on any toes. We're just saying, like, sometimes you need a friend, and you guys aren't going to be their friend, but we're a group of people. They can just come and hang. It's like, we're not a company, we're not a service, we're not trying to get anything out of this other than for everybody to have a good con experience, because they should be. So we did run into that, and with that specific event, they really kept stressing the importance of, oh, well, we have really, really strong security. And then after the event, all anybody would talk about was how they had no security there at all. So it's like, not only were they trying to shut down an opportunity for, friendships to be made, or for someone to be less lonely or anything like that. But they weren't even protecting the individuals that were there in the first place, which really struck a chord with me. And with all of us, we were all very upset. And they contacted me directly, saying that they didn't like our post, that, you know, us saying that, you know, we would be their buddy had become an issue for them, and that they were removing our post. And I said, okay, I understand. I don't agree with it, but you know, it's your business, it's your company. And they were very much under the impression that we were trying to be a service to people. And it's like, we don't we don't want anything like that. We just want everybody to be happy and have a good time. So they asked us not to post on their official media group anymore, and I agreed to that. But I'm a very transparent person. We're all very transparent people. We don't like withholding information the way that so many different entities do. And so we posted exactly what happened. You know, here is the issue. They didn't like this. So we're letting you know we're not going to be posting that anymore. And they contacted us again and said, oh, you misled them, so we're blocking you. So they didn't just block our members, they blocked everybody that we had ever shared a photo of in support, anybody that had liked our Facebook page or Instagram, anything. They just blocked in the middle of a con when they should have been doing their jobs, which was really kind of amusing. But it was just a very sad situation. It was handled very badly. And the point shouldn't have been them getting their way. It should have been them protecting the people going to their con. And when it comes down to it, they really weren't.
Oof, that is definitely very unfortunate. I sometimes, you know, when I look at the community, I sometimes find that I don't know if this is the right way to express it. There's almost kind of like a competitive aspect, and you know, it's like in some ways, like it's kind of harmless. Like when people are, you know, competing for popularity, it's kind of like, okay, you know, whatever. Like sometimes people need that like as a motivator. Like, oh, you know, this person's pretty popular. Let me see if I can get more likes than them. But then when someone is actually providing a service, like a con, for instance, and they're competing with their members, it gets to the point where it's like, you know, everyone is supposed to be on the same team. At the end of the day, we're trying to foster an environment that people can feel safe at, safe to appear at, safe to interact with others with or at. So it is definitely unfortunate that there are instances like that, especially, you know, especially how you describe it. It's again, it's almost like, okay, you know, instead of seeing this as, okay, people are coming together as a community to help us support our event, it's more like we need to compete with our actual attendees. It's like, okay, you know, these are the people you're providing a service to. You know, they're not supposed to be your enemy. So it's definitely unfortunate that that your group had to go through this. You know, even as an organizer myself, someone who tries to put together events for a community. You know, especially not even looking at the cosplay community, but just like society as a whole. I kind of feel like members of the cosplay community kind of those members kind of overlap with members of society that kind of get overlooked when it comes to, let's just say, like mental health, education, you know, empathy. And then even in that, I've myself I have experienced divisive behavior from certain individuals, groups. So you know, it's definitely sad to see, but you know, hopefully you guys can continue to do what you guys do and continue to provide. I mean, I guess it'd be kind of ironic if I called it a service, since that was the
Well,
issue.
you know what? It was kind of interesting because, um, and I mean, you know, interesting kind of like a sad way. When all of this happened, we received nothing but support. We actually had more people start following us. We had a lot of people, you know, praising us. And when you look at all these, you know, there's so many different Facebook groups and stuff like that for the con community, whether it's a con specific group, like I know there's like a fanime group and there's a CRX group. There's all kinds of Facebook groups that people will join, you know, hey, I've got this cosplay, somebody can pick it up here, whatever. Um, and individuals will post, hey, if you need a buddy, let me know. I'll hang out with you. I'm going alone or something like that. But because we were a group of people, they didn't take kindly to that, which there wasn't really any difference. I mean, we could have had one person there. The difference really was that um, there was more of a possibility for somebody to find a companionship or somebody that maybe they were having a really bad day and they were completely alone and they just needed somebody, and they could reach out to our page and we can say, hey, where are you? We've got 6 people in the area. We'll send somebody towards you. You can tell them what's wrong, or you can just tag along and go for the ride, stuff like that. But no, and I understand that as like a con organizer, they could be concerned that we were scamming or something like that. But why would we? Why would anybody really something like that? I mean, and it's something that we were saying publicly. So obviously, there was no malintent whatsoever, and they very much acted like it was, which was it was really disheartening.
Hmm. I mean, you kind of mentioned that the silver lining was at least it kind of brought this issue to attention. It's kind of ironic. Usually, when people say the words, there's no such thing as bad press, usually that's referring to, oh, we're definitely doing something bad, but this will
Yeah.
work in our favor. But this is one of those cases where, something that someone could have seen as bad press towards you ended up actually waking people up to the fact that there is an issue and that, there are people trying to combat this. So, I'm glad that there's that. On the flip side, do you think there are examples of events out there that are particularly good at providing a safe space? Like, do you think there's a counterexample, like an example of a place where you feel people are most definitely welcomed, and that you can tell that it's more about the attendees' experience versus like the bottom line, the profit margin, and stuff like that.
Um, well, and I know OhanaCon gets a lot of hate. They are very small. They're like a perfect starter con, and there's one in every city, right? They're everywhere. A lot of people really hate them because there's just not a lot to them. But if you're kind of just dipping your toes in, everybody is so nice. Most of the vendors go to like all the cons. So, yes, if you go to like 3 of them, you might see a lot of the same stuff. But people will recognize you. People will remember you. They'll be like, "Oh my gosh, you bought this thing last time. I have something that matches it." And it's a lot warmer of an environment that you'll get at some of the larger cons. Um, and there's not a lot of attendees. You can kind of maneuver around if you're just trying to get into cosplay. Um, you're more likely to have somebody say, "Wow, can I get a picture with you?" Which is really kind of exciting if you're just starting out versus going to a big con. Like if you went to San Diego Comic-Con in your very first cosplay and it's mediocre and you're super proud of it and nobody likes it. And that would, be really really upsetting. But if you go to a HanaCon, everybody's going to love it. People get really excited because half the people there don't know what cosplay is. And so you are something so exciting for them, especially the little kids, because, their parents are like, oh, here's this $10 event in town. Might as well take my kid. And then the little kid walks into a room full of people dressed as superheroes. And that is the coolest thing they've ever seen.
Yeah.
Um, so I enjoy the Ohana cons. I think they're really great for what they are. In regards to a larger con, Crunchyroll Expo, hands down, is one of the best cons that I've ever been to. They provide so much bang for your buck. Everything that you could possibly want, they definitely try to provide. Um, it's really spacious, so you're not crammed into one space and you're not like sweating. It was beautiful last year. I'm so sad that it's canceled. Last year, I was actually helping with a booth, and so I was there during setup. So walking into New Crunchy City when it was like pristine and people are building their setups for their shops, and it was amazing. The fake skyscrapers and everything. It was the coolest thing I'd ever been in, and the con hadn't even started yet. They had like a dozen different rooms with different activities. They even had a rest space in case you got overwhelmed, which people do at cons, and you needed to chill out. And the rest space was so nice. I was with my friend Ariel for most of the con, and we kept going back and just relaxing. They had bean bags everywhere. They had tents set up. It was like a campsite. But no, it was. They love the people that go to their events, and you can tell by the amount of love that they put into their event.
Yeah, I actually loved Crunchyroll myself. Go this past year, 2019, was actually my first time at that event. It usually conflicts with a very large event in the dance industry, so it's hard for me to find an opportunity to
Mm-hmm.
go. But I was able to go this past year, and it's so funny. Everything that I had heard, I didn't really experience it myself. Like people are saying, like, oh, you have to remember that this one's like a corporate event, so sometimes you have to remember there's that. So sometimes we think of it as kind of like what I was talking about earlier. Like you would we generally kind of associate, okay, big corporation dollars as I'm like losing my words. It correlates to like we only care about like, the bottom line, but I actually found that it was very thoughtful. Um, like from the very moment you arrive, they definitely have like a theme going on. And, even if you don't love the theme, you have to respect the fact that they put a lot of effort into it. It's almost like, there's even if you don't love the whole town setup, city setup, and the newspapers and whatnot, like even if it's like not your cup of tea, you have to give them some respect for the creativity that they definitely put out there, especially at an event.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's an event for creatives, so there were nice little touches that I really admired. Like it felt warm, and yeah, the rest areas with the bean bags everywhere, like that was really nice. It was
That was my favorite room.
Yeah, it was nicely set up. I was like like my initial thought was, okay, like I'm gonna go there to promote my event because that's part of my responsibilities. But I ended up getting caught up in a lot of the fun that I was like, wait, I have a job to do. I'm forgetting to do it. So
Right.
it was a good experience for me. I definitely enjoyed it myself. What are your thoughts on, let's say, like outside of cons, like gatherings, for instance, like what um this might be a bit to spring on you, but if you were to organize a gathering, for instance, what would be your biggest priority?
Um, I think the biggest priority should be always safety, especially with a gathering, because everything about a gathering is so public. People put them in Facebook groups, and there's tons of back and forth in the groups. So you know who's going, exactly where they're going to be, exactly when they're going to be there, what they're going to be wearing. So it does evoke a sense of concern. Um, Sometimes I wonder if there would be a better way to go about them. But there really isn't unless you are hiring security. And a gathering is just like a fun, free thing that people show up to. So there's no way to do that. So it really it's just a safety concern, and it just proves that we need to be really mindful of things that we're doing, in regards to something that is public like that.
Okay. I mean, you basically just answered my next question too, which was like, what can you do to go about it? Like, what's the solution? So, making sure that you have the manpower, the resources. In this case, like security. So, like again, especially as someone that like organizes events myself, this is always I'm always trying to be mindful of good advice or the thoughts of people that would be attending the events. And I do genuinely hope that all event organizers are really listening to their attendees and taking these things to heart because eventually, I hate to say it, eventually attendees will say enough is enough and they'll stop supporting. And, you know, when we get into a situation like that, it becomes lose lose because, you know, when you have less attendees, you know, like, yeah, you might hurt the wallets of people running the events and, you know, people say vote with your wallet. But then at the same time, you know, the people who are still there and haven't yet to be affected by the negatives, because, you know, not everyone is affected differently. Like, some people are more fortunate than others. But then for those people, they end up having a lesser experience because then the people that they were looking forward to see, like, they don't get to see. So it just becomes like a downward spiral. And I really hope that people can prevent this by, again, really, really listening to the attendees so that way we can avoid issues like this. So,
And that brings up a really good point. After some negative experiences earlier this year, we had a lot of people reaching out to our Facebook page, messaging us saying, "Hey, I never want to attend this specific con ever again. I didn't feel safe. Something went wrong and nobody would help me, whatever it was." We had several people reaching out to us asking, what is a con that is going to make me feel safe, that is going to make me feel respected, that is going to handle the problems that I bring to them in a timely manner and in a respectful manner. And most of them I recommended Crunchyroll. But I Crunchyroll is so safe. Seriously, like they work so hard on their safety. Fanime as well. I think it helps that it's in the same building.
mhm.
But no, and safety is a real concern for so many people when it comes to these events, especially since most of the time the security it are volunteers that just want tickets. And I mean, it's a sad fact, but it is a fact.
Ooh, yeah, it's definitely difficult. But, you know, like when like, the thing is this: even if it's not about how difficult it is, it's about if you're doing the right thing or not. Like, again, you know, as someone that does this, I can relate to this a lot, and I always find that, you know, even if doing the right thing ends up costing me more, taking more time, I'd rather do that so that way people will continue to come back. So, you know, again, I really hope everyone that, you know, has an event is taking notes right now, so that way you guys will know, okay, safety, safety, safety. You know, I should probably take notes myself later. Um, my next question for you, speaking of like security, so on the topic of mental health and security, as well as emotional health and security, you know, we kind of mentioned earlier, not everyone necessarily cosplays for the same reason. Um, Creative outlets, you know, as someone that teaches dance, I always tell my clients it's more than just teaching the art of dance. We're giving you something to kind of like whether it's to deepen your character or build your sense of stability, or, you know, just in some ways like benefit yourself. So, like, what's your take on? Sorry, I'm not being very eloquent right now, but what is your take on how cosplay can benefit that? Because it's a very, very interesting art form. Like, it's not just about the crafting. It's not just about the role playing or the acting aspect of it. There's so many dimensions to it. So I would love to hear your thoughts.
Um, so I actually struggle with an autoimmune disease and I have very severe OCD. So mental health is huge for me. And cosplay has really helped me cope in a lot of ways. And I think it's true of any hobby. If you can focus on something, on creating something, on doing something, and then being able to get out of your own head and get away from everything that's bogging you down and causing all these problems, they're not going to be gone. But when you have something to channel that into, it makes a huge difference, especially the cosplay community is a massive support network. When people post photos that they took at a con, I get so excited. And I know all my friends get so excited to go through the whole album and, like, oh, did I miss all these people? Like, wow, they did so well. These are amazing. So everybody's really, really supportive for the most part in the community. So having that and having all the things that you're channeling into creating these costumes or these props or whatever you like to make, um, it really helps. It gives like a sense of fulfillment. I mentioned that at the beginning. It's part of why it feels so fulfilled. You know, even if I'm making something as simple as a headpiece, like I get so excited when I'm done. I love to share it and then get the feedback from the community. Wow, look at that. Here's something you could have done better. And it's a lot of give and take, really, in the community. And mental health wise, that's really something that everybody needs. Everybody needs a support network. Everybody needs to be able to interact in a healthy way. Um, and it may not even be about their mental health. It may not even be about their physical health or their emotional health. It may not be about anything regarding that at all, but it may impact it. And so I think it it's huge. It really is.
Yeah. Kind of adding to that, the fun thing that I really like about this community is that there's so many different levels or like tiers in a sense that you can participate in. You know, like even if you're like not feeling ready to kind of create your own cosplay, you know, you can still enjoy the gatherings. Just being around other cosplayers is still a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Being a photographer is still a lot of fun. There's a lot of ways to participate, and even like the levels of cosplay. Like you don't necessarily have to commit to a full on costume. Like you can start piece by piece. And it is for the most part pretty accessible. I know sometimes people, when talking about accessibility, say it's pretty cost prohibitive. In general, a lot of hobbies can be like that. I mean, to give from some perspective, sometimes I'll look at the amount of costs that will go into some of my wife's cosplays, and I'm just thinking, oh man, getting into dancing costs me so much more. And then, sometimes someone else will talk to me and is like, oh, you think that's bad? This is what it took me to get into this. I'm kind of like, okay. I think the
Oh,
end of the day is, it's always gonna be there's always gonna be a cost to it, but at least that's the thing. At least I like that there's that option at least of kind of going at your own pace, especially now. Sometimes I kind of see this, I hate to bring this up, sometimes I kind of see others policing each other, like as if there's like a right or wrong way to cosplay, and I'm just kind of like, oh, that's not true. Like you like even like sometimes people will just show up with something as simple as a hat or a mask, and it already means a lot to them. And then when I was talking with her fiance, we were talking a lot about how a lot of us are in that same boat. This community, for instance, it has a high percentage of introverts, and it's kind of sad. Like you would think that people who are so similar would be able to relate to each other, but sometimes instead they try to. I guess this kind of goes back to competing with each other. They'll compete with each other. They'll kind of tear each other down to create their own ladder. And I don't know. It's a little unfortunate that that is a byproduct in a sense. But going back to what I was saying, I do like again the ease of access that it provides. So it's definitely a good gateway. Like
a
you
gateway drug.
in a sense, yeah. like
It is. It's very addictive. It's a gateway drug.
like it's a good it's a very easy one. It's for the most part a harmless one. Again, I know some of the people at home looking at their bank accounts will be like, I disagree, but but I hope everyone understands the sentiment behind what I'm saying. So got just a few more questions. So speaking of the topic of like whether it's like when I was talking about cosplay policing, and also like you were also talking about people who feel intimidated by certain events. I mean, I imagine I already know part of the answer to this, but I guess what advice would you have for members of this community who still struggle to find a feeling of acceptance? Like even like let's say even the ones that have already kind of gone through what you mentioned, the smaller events, and they're still kind of trying to fit in because everyone's going at this at their own pace. Like, what would your general advice be?
Um, Honestly, just don't give up. um, Everything is new to somebody at some point. So with that in mind, I didn't know anybody when I joined this. I found myself always trying to drag in my friends that weren't as interested as I was. Um, and I have met some of the best people that I have ever known. People that have gotten me through quarantine because I talk to them all day, every day. People that I didn't know before cosplay. And I didn't meet them immediately. I was cosplaying for years before I met so many of these people. And some of them I met, I met one person and then I met somebody else through them and I met somebody else through them. And now this person's my best friend. So you'll find your tribe. It may not take, you know, one try, two tries. It may be a few years of you going to these things, but if it makes you happy, there's no reason for you to stop. That's what I did.
That's definitely good advice. It's I hope that everyone can get a chance to hear it in some way or fashion, because there are times where like I will witness someone being so, let's say, even like whether it's through like someone else's malicious intent or just people getting discouraging themselves. I've seen instances where people will like straight up just say, "I want to quit this community," and it's heartbreaking. Like you don't like it's and like we always try to advise people the best that we can. And at the end of the day, like people have to find the strength to continue. But I'm hoping that words like the ones you just words of advice like the ones you just gave are ones that become like heard everywhere. Because it's kind of sad that sometimes people have to look hard and deep to find good advice. So I'm hoping that, as time goes on, we can kind of change that and make it so that way advice like this is a lot more commonly heard. Um, okay, a few more questions. What, besides security, because you kind of mentioned that, are there other qualities that you look for in an event in terms of like having fun? Like what would you say? So let's say safety is your number one. What would you be like your number two and number three quality in terms of like, okay, must have, otherwise deal breaker?
Oh gosh. um, I don't know. Honestly, I always find ways to enjoy every event that I go to. Um, I, sometimes I'm there for an hour. Sometimes I'm there for 10 hours. It depends on what they're providing, how long it takes me to get through everything. There have been some events where I didn't enjoy the event, but I had so much fun with the people around me. There was one event where I got lost trying to find a bathroom and ended up hanging out with a celebrity for an hour. So you never know what you're gonna find. Um, everything is a new experience, and so I think if you go into an event hoping for a good, positive experience, you'll find something.
It's almost like if I were to interpret what you just said, I could almost kind of summarize that down into what makes an event memorable is the people that you encounter. That could be one of them. And
And the
then,
attitude that you have.
yeah, like an open mindedness for adventure. I mean, you know, most of the characters that people cosplay are the types that go on adventures themselves. It's almost kind of like living your own real life anime. It's almost kind of funny. At this point, there's been an anime about everything. There's even an anime about ballroom dancing. So anything you can think of, you can find. I wonder if there's just one about. I mean, someone might be able to answer this for me. I wonder if there's just one about just being a weeb. Like that would that would be.
There is. So there's one. I'm sorry. It's called "Kiss Him, Not Me," and it's about a girl who is a hardcore weeb, and she gets really sick and loses a bunch of weight, and then there's like 10 guys that are in love with her, and she's like, "I just want you guys to fall in love with each other, just like the characters on this anime that I love," and it's the greatest thing.
Oh wow, I
It's
definitely need to
so
look into.
funny. So it's on the Crunchyroll app. Kiss Him, Not Me. It's got my seal of approval. Go watch
Definitely
it.
got to check that out.
It's
Like the
so
closest thing
funny.
I could think of is I remember there was a series called Welcome to the NHK, and that wasn't necessarily about weaves in particular, but more. But a lot of weebs are able to relate to it. So I remember that as being like the closest thing. But like, just like, almost imagine if someone just kind of took your con experience and just like wrote it into a volume. Like that would be the most interesting thing ever. Of course, with the anime twist, so you have to have everything super exaggerated.
There's also a 3 or 4 part manga series by Svetlana Chmakova called DramaCon, and it's a Comic Con that these people attend, and so it's like one year and then another year, and then so it's like everything takes place in these 3 days,
Huh.
and it's pretty good. I used to read it in high school.
Interesting. But yeah, like but yeah, like going back to your answer, it's almost kind of like, sometimes we can take a page because some people cosplay the role models, and I guess you could also interpret it as just take a page of your role model. I mean, take a page out of the life of your role models. Sorry, long days for me.
You have a baby.
Yeah, so my sleep schedule's non-existent. I'm like, words, what are they? I'm starting to talk like her. Like, but you get the idea. It's almost like you want to like going to a con, you can almost kind of think, what would this character do? So that's kind of a fun way to advise others on like how to get the most out of their con experience. All right, one last question. This one's a bit of a silly one. Cosplay bucket list. Do you have one? And if so, what are some things you gotta get rid of in the next what are some things you gotta check off in the next few years?
I have so many things on my Amazon wish list. I will never have all the money to buy all these things. I um oh gosh. I am working on Peachette because she's so fun
Aw.
from Mario. I really like all of the different iterations of Peach. With there's Bouette and Bowsette, and I think they're fun, and I think it um like there was one that was a piranha plant. Like people get or chompette, people get so creative with that, so it's fun to see. And so I wanted to hop on
Aw.
hop on the bandwagon.
Yeah, all the
um
crown characters.
I
We had a chomp
really
at our last event, actually.
that's so cool. um I really enjoy the the Disney characters, honestly, and I think it's a sense of nostalgia and it's just fun. I have been at events where I'm volunteering as a Disney character. I think I was Alice from Alice in Wonderland, and a kid was walking. The event was in the parking lot of a mall, and I went into the mall, and there was a 2 or 3 year old walking with his parents. They didn't know what was going on outside, and this kid locks eyes with me from like 500 feet away and just takes off sprinting towards me. And his parents were like, "Where is our child going?" And then they saw me and they're like, "Oh, okay, it's fine. It's a Disney princess." So I think the Disney ones are so fun for me, because people react in such a positive manner. So I think I get the most out of doing those. So I wanna do a complete roundup of Disney. Just do all of them
I
one
can
by one.
imagine the parents seeing all these Disney princesses and be like, "Great, we don't have to take our kid to Disneyland anymore. We just saved hundreds."
Right? It was so, oh my gosh. And he seriously, he had his arms out like this, sprinting
Aw.
towards me full speed. And I was like, okay. And I just put my arms out and waited for him. Like, sometimes cosplay brings people together, whether they know that you're cosplaying or not.
That's always the best thing, bringing people together. That's my favorite.
Yes.
Well, that was a really fun interview. I definitely enjoyed everything that you had to say. I really hope that a lot of people really take this perspective to heart. Because, again, even if it's like, even if there's many cons in a year, when people have a bad experience, you don't really get that time back. Like you can't rewind it and like do it over. Like like it's heartbreaking to hear people say like, "Oh, I should have stayed home. This wasn't worth it. I wasted my ticket." It's you never want people to think those things. So I really do hope that not just attendees, but organizers, people who are looking to get into organizing. It doesn't have to be a con, even if it's just a gathering, even if it's just, any kind of event. Just really, really, really be mindful of what people value, what people want. And as long as we do that, we'll be able to build a good community.
Absolutely. And if, once cons are going back on, if you guys need buddies, just shoot our Facebook a message. It's Unboxed Angels, and you can find me on Instagram. I'm Sugarbean Cosplay.
Awesome.
I
Well,
like friends.
awesome. Me too. Well, thank you again so much. I hope you
Thank
guys
you.
have a wonderful rest of your week as well as a wonderful rest of the remaining shelter in place, however long that goes. Would they say until the end of May for us over in the South Bay? So I'm hoping
I
that's
think that's where we're at too, but
yeah,
who knows? Who
yeah.
knows?
Well, I greatly look forward to the next chance we have to gather again, and thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.